All right, so guys, just to explain to you, I'm going to do a quick introduction. The idea, Jules, I kind of broke down the campaign a little bit to you. I know we've got to catch up on some stuff. And Nicole also broke it down a little bit for you. But the notion right now is literally we're trying to achieve two things. The first thing is we want to get as many influencers as possible, right? And when we say the word influencers, people assume what we actually mean is celebrities. But no, an influencer is anybody that's able to change somebody's life or anybody that's able to do something for somebody, right? And that's what I want our conversation to actually be. I want our conversation to be about what is an influencer and why are we important? You know, we're all from different walks of life. Nicole, you're from the world that you're in. Jules, you're from the world that you're in entertainment as well. But why is it important as Africans that we come together? Right, and so for this particular campaign, the idea is to get Africans together to do our part to help with the misinformation that's going on around the continent, especially with statistics, health-wise, medically, all those things. There's just a fear factor. What is the COVID-19? But at the same time, also, the second thing is to figure out ways of fundraising to help those that are already on ground doing the work of organizations, the community people. Like one example is an actress called Jocelyn Duma from Ghana, who her foundation has been helping a lot of the kids. So the idea is how could we assist these people as well, but also assist the normal person in the community that's raising money to buy rice for the elderly or the local orphanage. Does that make sense? So that's really where we're going. And we also talk about how we apply ourselves in our skill sets, in our world, in where we're going. So just we're laid back. It's kind of that flow of conversation. We're in a perfect position. Yeah, there's a little gap between the top and your head. That's also good. We're all specialists out here. So I'm going to make the introduction, guys, and we're going to flow for about half an hour, and then we're done, pretty much. Okay. Okay, so let me make sure everything is fantastic, great. Okay. Ready?
Ready when you are, bro.
This guy, even though he produces. Okay, so this is Info Africa, conversation with two amazingly talented, informative and influencers, part of this campaign, of course. And the reason why I decided to speak to these two great people, because they work in different fields, but are actually coming to do the same thing and have the same cause moving forward with this campaign. They are both Africans, they're both proud Africans who have worked both in Africa and in the diaspora. And I wanted to speak to them about their notion and their viewpoint of what being an influencer is. You know, we talk about influencers not just being celebrities or what we deem powerful people from around the world, but influencers are people that are able to change the everyday lives of other people and impact themselves and impact their families, you know, for moving forward. So I would like to introduce our amazing panelists today. We have the one and only DJ Jules, baby, who's an internationally recognized DJ and producer. I'm not sure these days whether he prefers producer first and DJs, then sometimes he switches it from DJ to producer, but he's Ghanaian, of course, British Ghanaian, of course, a guy that I've worked with all around the world, extremely talented, somebody who has impacted the current change and sort of flow of our music scene moving forward. And of course, also we have a special guest who is actually a good friend of mine, but also a project manager at the Panzi Foundation set up by the Nobel Peace Prize receiver, Dr. Mukwege, based in Bukavu, Nicole Batumike. And Nicole, we spoke about your surname, right? Batumike. What it means in our language in Ghana, small people. But you're definitely not a small person, so I don't know how your surname applies to you. Guys, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So
Thanks
we're friends. We're friends. So, you know, that's the first thing, you know, I just feel like I'm blessed to know some amazing people, but at the same time, seeing you guys and recognizing you as influencers. First of all, I want to ask Nicole, you're currently in Switzerland. That's,
yes,
you know, you're half Swiss, half Congolese, yeah? Mm-hmm. And that's where you're based at the moment. And so, but you were in Bukavu most recently. Tell us about that, what you were doing in Bukavu and how you ended up in Switzerland again.
So basically, I moved to Bukavu last August, right after finishing my master's in the UK. And I've been working as a project manager until today. I'm still obviously a project manager at the foundation, but because of the situation, the global situation actually, because the situation wasn't and is still not that bad in Congo. It's not worse than here. It's not. It's different, but it's just different challenges. So I actually came back just so that I could be close to my parents, who are based in Switzerland, as flights were closing, and I just wanted to be sure that I was next to people that I could need to reach at some point in those times of uncertainty.
Totally understandable. What was the situation like when you left? How were people receiving or dealing with COVID? Was there a serious approach to it? Would you feel the right information has reached them? Because I know you're surrounded by people who are medically trained as well, people who understand what a pandemic is. You know, with Congo, with us dealing with Ebola before and all those things. So how were they taking
it? So I think as you said, for the people that were or are medically trained, it was quite easy to intake and to know what needed to be done next. There was still a sense of I would say some stress or anxiety around it because we didn't have the material, and we knew that from the start. We knew that we needed respiratory machines. For example, in Bukavu we only had 2, so we knew that we really needed to put in the work to have more. And that was not only our situation in South Kivu, but also in North Kivu that had, for example, 0 respiratory machines. Same thing with Kinshasa, we had maybe 50. So yeah, I think that the government or the president reacted quite quickly in appointing responsible people in each province for the situation. And that's how Dr. Mukwege got appointed. And I think that then the communication was quite good in South Kivu. I'm not that aware of the other provinces, but I know that for us it was quite well done, and the governors as well were really serious about closing the borders of the provinces, for example. And as soon as we had cases in the cities, closing the cities so that we couldn't go to the rural areas and affect other people. But then obviously what got complicated is this testing, because we didn't really have test kits and we had to send everything to Kinshasa. That made it very complicated for us to really follow the exact number of cases and know when someone was sick. And so that's why now we seeing a bit of a peak coming. But that's something that we're still observing and seeing how we can handle. That's for the medical people. But then for the population, people weren't really stressed at first. And I think that it's because in Eastern Congo, people went through a lot. I was both in Bukavu and Goma when the pandemic came, because my family is mainly in Goma, so I stayed there to be with them. But yeah, the people went through, for example, in Goma, people went through the war in 2014. We had Ebola recently. They have a volcano there that erupted also not long ago. Yeah, there is a lot going on. So I think that people just know how to face the situation with quite a positive attitude, which I thought was really
crazy, right? Because I was actually,
yeah.
I was actually saying to a few people, the other day, that some people are just so used to different pandemics and situations that epidemics hitting them that this becomes a normal thing. Now, Jules, hearing from what Nicole is saying is that there's so much information to take in, bro. Like you've been, your vibe as an entertainer like myself, where the first thing we went to was panic mode. We can't travel. We can't go to any events. There's no more festivals. What are we going to do? But you've seemed to have adjusted yourself. Tell me about your experience, your outlook on what you saw Corona to be and the COVID-19, and especially with the lockdown, to where you are now with it, how you've applied yourself.
Well, when the news started spreading quite rapidly about, COVID-19, which was kind of like probably the end of February, beginning of March. I was in South Africa at the time. And when I was in South Africa, you know, on the news, you keep on hearing a lot of reports of the cases, you know, increasing. And so it was just more of a thought of, I need to get back, you know, to London before, you know, they take any, you know, drastic measures with regards to closing the borders. So got back to Ghana and just hopped on the next flight, you know, back to the UK. But what was crazy is that when we got there, you know, there weren't any checks. Whereas back home, especially in Ghana and South Africa, they were taking the necessary measures to, you know, at the time there wasn't as much research done with regards to being able to detect the virus, but they were taking some sorts of precautions, which was very, very impressive coming from, you know, the continent, because we all have the stigma and they believe that we're not as developed with regards to the information, the technology. Like Nicole was saying, there weren't as many test kits, you know, when it came to being able to treat, you know, the COVID-19, you know, cases at the time. So we started taking measures quite quickly. Now, with regards to the effects, now, as you know, so everybody is affected by this, you know, whether you're an entertainer or whether you work in corporate or you do research, because we rely on a lot of face-to-face communication, you know, with regards to these activities. You know, being an entertainer, you know, there were so many things that were booked up. You know, I was even supposed to be in Switzerland, supposed to be in Kenya. We're supposed to go to South Africa again, New York. Eddie, you know how it is. You know, everything was literally cancelled.
Every time I turn around, you're behind me. You're on the plane more than me.
Bro, it's ridiculous, Nicole. And it's ridiculous. I could be going to a different country, and then I just get a tap on the behind me, and then who's there? It's a bald guy who looks like Eddie Kelly. It's like, oh, this guy looks like Eddie Kelly. Oh, wait a minute, it is Eddie Kelly. It's ridiculous. So we're literally just traveling all over the place, and now it's just so weird, and it's kind of like, gosh, how do I, you know, make money? Because for entertainers, and for me, for example, if you're not in a label situation or you don't have that kind of financial backing, a lot of the money you depend on is bookings. Yeah. Whether it's a club booking, it's a festival booking, or a party or whatever. Now we can't have these events because of the amount of people that are, you know, in these. Now we have to take in social distance quite seriously. It's very difficult because now we have to resort to, you know, the internet. And the internet is massive, and you know there's so many rules and regulations with regards to the rights of music and how we can play it. So we have to be very strategic about how we do these things. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but I've been in the studio a lot just trying to create. But then again, you can only do so much when you're in an enclosed room by yourself for such a long time, because for musicians and for people and creatives like ourselves, we need to travel, experience different experiences in different parts of the world to get inspired to create music or to create jokes. Eddie may see something and he, you know, creates a joke from that. You know, if he goes to Kenya and he's introduced to some sort of culture or something that they do there, then he goes to Kenya, he can crack that joke and then they can relate to it. You know, that's how we live off our experiences. So now and it's just ridiculous and crazy that now we're indoors and we have to come up with all of these ideas, you know, to try and engage our audience and stay relevant, really.
You know what's going to happen now is going to have 25 million songs all called COVID-19. Comedians are going to start saying the same jokes about being on a lockdown. You know, we have to really start stretching our inspiration. But, you know, we're now in a position where, as you've mentioned, Jules, that, you know, we're confined in this space. And for me, it took a while for me to start to understand that actually my situation is not as bad as for others, right? And I've spoken to both of you separately just about the campaign that I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But let me put it to both of you. Why do you think it is important as individuals, but also as Africans, to start to look beyond ourselves and, you know, start to influence other people and moving forward, especially in this stage right now, Nicole?
I think that we've got the answers just in our hands, and we've had a lot of people putting their hands on the continent without actually having I would say a right to it, or as much rights to it as our people, our ancestors. And I just believe in the ancestors. I believe in us as the descendants of something that's bigger than us. So I think that it's definitely, you know, in our hands to take the matter, in the sense that so many people are now involved with the continent, maybe multinationals, international organization. I mean, that's why I'm personally working with a Congolese organization. I could be working with an international organization and have, you know, all those advantages that we know are given to expats in those kind of organizations. But that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how we function, and knowing how we as people are trying to advance, and having as a boss a Congolese leader. And actually Congolese leaders, because he's not the only amazing person that's directing me in my work. Is just so inspiring. And to be honest, I'm learning so much every day that it's still very hard to put words on what I'm seeing. Because it's deep learning, because it's learning about us, about the way we do things. It's still very different than what you can learn at school. You know, I did African studies. I also did a lot of courses about development, and I also majored in business when I did my bachelor's. But there is nothing like being on the continent and being with our people and really trying to learn from them on how we could contribute and move forward, just with us and with them, and just us, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important, you know, that you put that point of the work that you've been doing and why you've been doing it. And then, of course, then, you know, people see with the Panzi Foundation, they know the impact of this. You know, Dr. Mukwege is probably the biggest campaigner of using sexual violence as a weapon of war, right? So
yes.
Many people will not know that there's so many people behind the scenes who come to put these pieces together. So for me, these conversations are important to understand that what we call the unsung heroes, those who are not mentioned publicly, are also as much influencers as those who are mentioned publicly. You know, Jules, you're Ghanaian, you spend a lot of time in Ghana, a lot of your school years in Ghana as well. What have you heard about what's going on back home? I'm aware of so much work that's been happening, but like, for you, what's your outlook? Is information getting back to you guys and also as much as we thought is information getting to you guys, but also what are you taking from what people are doing in Ghana and really how they've reacted?
Well, to be honest, from what's gotten back to me, the cases have not been that many. I mean, the last time I was told the cases were about 5,000, but then this 5,000 cases were over a period of about, you know, from March to where we are now. So it's not as bad as compared to what's happening, you know, in the UK, Italy, Spain, America, etc. At first, they weren't taking it as seriously. So the markets that are really packed, like Makolo Market, you know, where if you've been to Ghana before, it's a very crowded area, and you know the density is ridiculous. So you can imagine a place like that, if the COVID virus had spread quite rapidly, it would have been very, 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 very uncontrollable, especially in that area, because it's an area where not only do they sell lots of, you know, secondhand clothing, and not even too far from there where they sell, you know, car parts. You can find anything in that market, to be honest.
I know Mokola Market, man. Anything you need.
Exactly.
A lot of oxygen you'll find in Mokola Market.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and it's very dense in that area, and you know, it's not the most cleanest of places either. Yeah. So places like that, you definitely know it's an area where you can definitely contract the virus just because the amount of people. It's even like London. If we weren't taking it as seriously, just imagine a place like Oxford Street or a place like, even the tube stations, so compact and full during rush hour. It would be ridiculous. So at first we weren't taking it seriously, but then the president decided to, take in certain measures to make sure that, okay, we need to actually quarantine, stay home, take the lockdown seriously. And I reckon because of what was happening on our side, people were seeing how serious it was, and it caused a lot of panic. And so people were like, okay, you know what, this thing is serious, we're going to stay at home. Africans, we have the stigma of, we are strong and, we're able to go through anything regardless of, but I think this was taken a bit more seriously where they saw what it was doing, in the sense where if the Western world are struggling to control the havoc and the chaos that this virus is, causing, how much more us, where we're not as developed and we don't really have as much information with regards to, the virus as well. So I believe, we were slowly getting it. Now I believe that it's eased a bit, but people are still, scared, to really come out and socialize as much. But the numbers are still quite low. The virus really got in, from my understanding, from some foreigners that came into the country.
Once again, would that have been real information, or was this part of the news or what people were saying?
Well, this is what I'm saying. A lot of these things, and I feel a lot of these things are conspiracies. Do you understand? I'm hearing there's a cure in Madagascar that they're trying to test. I'm hearing that, there's so many conspiracy theories. There's stories of even people as high as President Trump doesn't want to wear the mask. He's ready to just, do whatever he does because it's him. So, again, there are a lot of conspiracies that are going around, but all we can really do is listen to what the health specialists and the doctors are telling us, and just follow the rules.
So think about it. So Nicole, let's be real with these conspiracy theories, man. The situation in Madagascar, where the actual leaders come out to say we have our remedy. This works for us. We also actually say it can work for everybody. Then, of course, big health organization have come to say, we're not sure. We tested it the next day, within 24 hours. They struck it down. But other African countries have come to support Madagascar, and now it's become a bit of a tug of war. Like, what's your opinion? And this, because, look, you did African studies, of course, and my time at Oxford University. But your outlook in terms of the way the continent is, there's so many countries, different faces, different cultures. How can we come together? How do we find that middle point of where we can actually serve as a continent together so we can apply ourselves? Because everybody's got different opinions, different visions, different ways of life. We have Francophones, Anglophones, Portuguese speakers, Swahili land. How do we do that? So I wanted to first, speak on your view on the actual remedies and what people have been talking about. What's your outlook on that?
So that's really, it's really my personal opinion, right? It's just my words, but I personally think that we do have a stronger immune system against the virus. I think that people eat very healthy back home. We eat fruits, we eat gingembre every day. We can take those kind of shots. We do have natural medicine. We have eucalyptus all over. For example, in Congo, I can't generalize for the continents, but I really think that we also not used to antibiotics, biotics. Older people don't live on that, so in a way they aren't as weak or dependent in that way. And I really think that with that logic, I really believe in the cure that was found in Madagascar. I really think that this blockade, again, that's just my opinion, but has to do with the pharmaceutical industry and the fact that WHO is supporting the pharmaceutical industry and the vaccines that are made in the US or in the Western world, or financed by them at least. They are supporting the discourse of people like Bill Gates or other philanthropic that have literally no clue of how we would solve those kind of things, and we're really relying on that kind of medicine when we could have our own, you know. So that's my first opinion. And then I think that the way for us to bring or use that African unity when it comes to Madagascar, or one of us, for example, having a solution or suggesting a solution, I think this is the time for us to really show that we actually want to try it, and that we want to keep our integrity, and that we don't care what WHO has to say. We have the African Union that could push it, for example. I think that's the role of the African Union. To be honest, I haven't really followed if they did anything in regards to this, if they followed up on that. But I really think that this cure should be used and tried.
That's the point. So it comes down to, as you're talking, as someone who has their opinion based on their studies, based on their experience, it comes down to unity, right? It comes down to, like, how do we get this information out? And I'm talking just for those, not everybody's able to watch the internet. Not everybody's able to, they have access to a phone or radio or whatever. They said the pandemic is actually, the actual COVID-19 is spreading beyond the capital cities. And you know, if you had to speak to somebody who was not a celebrity, just a normal person, Jules, and speak to them on being an influencer and being able to do what you're doing right now, which is using your gift, using your platform, what would you say to them?
In terms of how to handle the situation?
How to handle the situation, and also how to share the information, how to also help those who are in less privileged positions.
Well, I mean, the role of an influencer, you know, has been debated, you know, over several years. And I feel like it depends on the type of person you really are in real life, and how you use the ability that you have or you've built over the years in terms of your brand, in terms of your name, and how you're going to use it, you know, to a positive, you know, take, really. So, for example, somebody like a Jay-Z, who's probably one of the most powerful men in the world, will have the ability to say, okay, this is what we're supposed to do, this, that, and the third. But then sometimes it comes across as cliche, and that's probably not what he has been known for doing over the last few years. So it comes across as weird. But he probably has a foundation that he's working behind closed doors that somebody's responsible for, and he's a silent investor, you know, that type of thing. For people who are vocal like us, you know, it's important to, you know, educate in ways where it makes, you know, sense. I feel like everybody is doing exactly the same thing, which is stay in your yard, saying the same thing over and over and over again. So you can be very creative about it. So, for example, my brother, Gerald Sego, who's also, you know, Ghanaian, and he's, you know, he's a visual director. You know, he hit me up and he was like, you know, I'm going to put a video together where he's picking out very clever quotes from African leaders from all over the world. So it was Kofi Annan in there, it was Nelson Mandela. We even went to the likes of America, where he had Tupac in there. We had Bob Marley, saying all sorts of quotes which somehow relate to the message.
Yeah.
So it's like we put all of that together. I produced a record specifically for him to use with that video, and we put that on our Instagram post to say, guys, this is the message you're trying to put out there. And if you look at that visual, you actually see, and it's weird, some of the things that Tupac and Bob Marley are saying are highly unrelatable to what the situation is at hand. And they're not even with us anymore. But it's kind of like a message that's passed on. Kofi Annan is not with us. Nelson Mandela is not with us.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like our past leaders somehow projected that this would probably have happened in the next few years, but they're not with us, and they're letting us know that, guys, you know, you need to search within yourself and, you know, follow the rules, take instructions, stay at home, etc., etc. There's so many ways of doing it visually rather than just saying, guys, you need to stay at home, guys, you need to stay at home.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, whether we like it or not, a lot of the people are not following the rules.
Yeah.
People will feel like,
that's what it comes up to.
Yeah, they're not following the rules. So what can you really do? The people in the government are even.
I like that. I like that, Jules. Like, what can you do? So like Jules speaking as an an entertainer, and Nicole, you speaking as someone who you have a lot of colleagues around you, but you also have family. You also have family back home in Congo. You have family in Switzerland, but you have friends all over. What do you think is the best way to communicate? Like for somebody that may be watching and in your opinion, is to communicate with the normal civilians, let's call them, because a lot of people don't see themselves as influencers. How do we break those things down? Because it's almost a lot of the time left to let the ones who are in front of the camera, or the ones who travel the world, or the ones who are celebrated in public to deal with these matters. How do we now make it an us thing for anybody to be seen themselves as an influencer and get involved?
I think that's tricky.
It is, right?
I'm working. Actually, the first group of people that comes to my mind are survivors, because that's who I'm working with, right? So I'm working with one of the projects I'm managing is the national movement, the national network for survivors of sexual violence. And the national coordinator of the movement is a survivor, and she basically I'm just supporting her in her work, and supporting her and her colleagues who are also survivors.
Yeah.
And sometimes I mean what I'm really working on currently actually is how can I use my way of communicating and what I know of social media for them. We aren't on Instagram yet, for example, with the movement. We are on Facebook. That's the main outlet that we use, because that's what's used a lot in Congo. But to get to the world, it would be better to use Instagram or Twitter. And that's a strategy that we are working on. But it's really, I think that for us to get there with the movement, for example, I would need to have a full training on Instagram, because they really don't know Instagram. They don't know how live works. They don't use it daily. They're also a bit older, so it's different. But then, we have other kind of using their voice directly and bring it to the public. As I said, Facebook or other kind of lives are being set. But yeah, that's for one thing. Then when it comes to the population, I don't know. I still think that it's different in the sense that I still think that you need some kind of means sometimes to be an influencer. A lot of people don't have Androids, or they don't necessarily have access to. Yeah, they can have access to more people than just their physical entourage. So I think that it's still a huge challenge. Also to get people to believe in their own ideas when they go beyond what's spiritual, if you know what I mean, because we are very much into what doesn't cost, and what doesn't cost currently. I can't generalize for the continent, but for example, in Eastern Congo, a lot of youth that have that ambition and that try to influence others are generally talking about God and religion. So I think that, yeah, for some other things that could imply money, it's a bit more difficult.
For sure, man. It's such a challenge, because the continent is so wide, and you're going into territories that may not or may believe in the things that you're talking about, and and also may not respect your expertise or your field. There's so many things. Then there's the language barrier, and of course, and I think for this campaign, one of the main thing for us is to try to include as many faces as possible representing the different regions, which is why we're also working with the African CDC as well as the African Union, to make sure that so many people are represented at the same time. Jules, you are Ghanaian, of course. Nicole, I know you're Congolese, but you're also a French speaker, so you're representing the Francophones as well. I wanted, before we go from you guys, I know, Jules, you're fluent in Twi, even if it's a 10-second, 15-second message in your language to your people who may not feel that they are being represented when these conversations are happening, and it might touch somebody else, because when we speak our language, when I speak Lingala, I don't know about Lingala, when it's like talk don't my lobezo be man and nivo musuzu. See how I'm smiling, I'm alive already. And I feel like that's the same way the spirit we have as our people, that sometimes when we do speak in our native tongue or what we're comfortable with, we're able to be a bit more expressive. So a quick message to your people in Twi, we welcome it, Mr. DJ Jules.
Yeah, Ghana for me, ciao. To see as it COVID virus now. A very serious situation, and she has the certain measures in place to make sure that Ghana for we don't contract the virus as seriously. So, Mr. Opa, just follow the rules. Tina fear na unim say to me a juma, or do your work at home. Try as much as possible, say, keep yourself healthy, wash your hands, make sure say munko bibiana is not important, and stay safe. Why? Because our COVID virus now is very serious, and if we don't take the necessary measures to make sure that we kill this virus, we will suffer a lot. So, Mr. Opa, Mr. Opa.
Thank you, Jules. May I say. And Nicole, I know you got a lot of loved ones you got back home in Bukavu. Of course, there's also people in Kinshasa, those people that are watching home, and a lot of them would not have even known your face as someone who's actually working hard in such an important organization that's now globally recognized. And I know you're a fluent French speaker, but you also speak beautiful English, even though you're always saying, my English is not good, your English is actually perfect. But, do you have any message, in French, just for the people back home, even if it's 10, 15, just a message of encouragement. And I know you're dying to go back as well to, continue the work you're doing, but at the same time also, you've got to be close to family. So just any message that you have for those back home will be well appreciated.
Donc, mes frères et sœurs congolais, pour l'instant, en tout cas, de là où je suis vraiment fière de voir la manière dont les choses évoluent. Je suis vraiment fière de voir la manière dont les gens se protègent de manière créative. On parle de masques qui sont faits avec des fonds de bouteilles. On parle de toutes sortes d'initiatives qui sont prises vraiment pour se protéger les uns et protéger les autres aussi. Et c'est ça en quoi je crois, c'est que nous, on a cet instinct entre nous de se protéger, de protéger la communauté, de protéger l'autre d'abord. Je pense qu'il faut qu'on continue sur cette voie-là, que quand on se dit que voilà, on ne va pas partir à l'école parce que c'est fermé et tout ça, qu'au final, on utilise ce moment-là pour être en famille et vraiment éduquer nos enfants et vraiment s'occuper à continuer à se développer de ce côté-là. Et sans s'oublier. Après, je pense qu'il faut aussi vraiment suivre ces règles quand il s'agit de fermer les églises. Je sais que c'est très difficile pour certaines personnes de ne pas aller à l'église. Je sais qu'il y a des églises qui sont restées ouvertes. Je pense qu'il faut vraiment à nouveau suivre cette idée de rester chez soi pour s'instruire soi-même et faire les choses chez soi. Et voilà, continuer à suivre ces règles-là et tout ira bien. Moi, je fais confiance à mon peuple. Je pense qu'on va s'en sortir la tête haute comme d'habitude.
Fantastic. Merci, Nicole. That was very beautiful. Guys, it's been wonderful, man. Like I said, this whole campaign is supposed to outlive COVID-19. It's supposed to be something that we can apply to every other issue that we're dealing with across the continent, because this is by us. Once we can unite, we can talk, and we can action, it'll be amazing. I know that, of course, as well, on the 6th of June, when we put together this festival, somehow you'll have some sort of involvement. But I really thank you for your time. It's not easy to do what we're doing during this pandemic. And yeah, man, we're going to continue our conversation. I appreciate you. Any final messages before we go?
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah. I don't even want to make the conversation even long. It was just touching on what Nicole was saying
Open up.
with regards to the influencer thing. You know, most of the time, the youth are really not interested in hearing anything that's really educative or it's really, something that's away from what they would be interested in, which is entertainment or music or arts. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to grab their attention. And the only way you can grab their attention is, social media sometimes or even television. But right now, it's very tough times to even get that, especially in the villages. I don't know what it's like in Kinshasa, but from what I do know is that in Ghana, the villages, everybody gathers around in one area, and then there's literally a big TV that they've probably done the crazy connection to the electricity supply, and they don't even have electricity or water running consistently. So the only thing the government can really do is run ads upon ads upon ads, but they need to get those influencers that they like. So in Congo, if it's an Awilo or it's a Kofi Olamide or it's a BM who a lot of the people know, the TV stations and the government need to collaborate and do stuff with these influencers to run these type of ads on television. And when I say TV, local television that everybody has access to, and consistently run these ads on the TV so that people are aware of what's going on. Then we have the other issue of the government not being able to provide electricity and water to these areas. So how would they really be able to, take care of themselves? So they need to put certain measures in place, whether it's a small well or some sort of tap with the sanitizer or the soap, so that they can be able to, do the necessary things with regards to their health and stuff like that. That's the only way we can really see it. The Instagram and the social aspect of things is very difficult, and there's an age gap. So the people who are a lot older, who are not even on Instagram, get to see the TV stuff.
Yeah.
The people who are a lot younger, and this festival, for example, that we're trying to have, where we are trying to raise funds and stuff like that, the people who are going to be tuning into these Instagram lives and festivals need to understand what exactly the message is. And it's very important for us influencers to hammer that message in, and not people think that it's just a party where they just come to listen to some jams and stuff like that and go away for free. We need to make it clear that we are raising funds for a very, very good cause, and we're not just here to just party and stuff like that. Obviously, that's the message that we want to get across so that people will be interested in coming in. But it's very key that the message is quite clear so that people don't come with some. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's very important that we get that message really, really clear, because sometimes people, especially Black people, and not to even, go against us, but sometimes it's very difficult to get us to support our own. It's very difficult. Sometimes there's always some story about it, or, people want to do something first, or we always want to be the first to do it, or create this impression that we're doing so much for this and that. When really, if you really care about it and you're doing it from your heart, then you shouldn't really be doing all of these politics and stuff like that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think it's very important that our message is, cut across and very clear. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that, nobody thinks that, oh, here's another foundation that's been set up and this, that, and the third. I think it's very clear that the message is quite cut across.
That message is, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and that's why we want something like this to outlive. It has been triggered by COVID, but it really is a call for a change, for our generation to do something different, for us to take control the narrative of how Africa comes across when we're talking about aid. We don't want it to become look at Africa needy and poor. We want it to be an empowering message, which is why during this campaign we want to highlight all the great people that are doing things on the continent, and all the great people that will continue to do things on the continent. Only just yesterday we saw, it's gone viral, a Congolese woman who has actually shown innovation in the catwalk world, the fashion, her own virtual fashion show. Now, because of social media, nobody can now tell us that it wasn't started by one of us. This is what empowerment is all about. And we need to start applying all these influences and really pushing it back home. And, you know, Nicole, I would like to thank you because there's so much work that you're doing with the foundation, but I really wanted today to be about you and your conversation. And I want us to have another conversation to really go in depth about what the foundation does. But, you know, it was important to have you as an individual to talk about, you know, your opinions and how we can move forward. So I appreciate you both, guys. I know you have to go, you know, get off. I don't know what time you go to bed these days because me, I don't have a sleep pattern anymore. You know, such is life. But I appreciate you guys, man, for sure. We'll catch up soon. Bless you.
Thank you, Dee. Thanks. Bye. Bye,
Take care,
everyone.
Nicole.
Bye, Drew.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.